COVID was hard for everyone, especially for someone like myself who had moved to a new high school right before lockdown. Luckily, I met my best friend Alondra 2 months before the lockdown. Alondra and I would try to hang out, but would constantly be stopped by COVID restrictions and parental nerves. Soon enough, once it was warm enough, we got into hiking. Eventually, we found a hike that claimed to lead you to an overlook to see the Continental Divide. This sounded intriguing, so I instantly sent it to her. We agreed to go that same weekend. I prepared my hiking bag the night before, and the morning of, I decided to leave my house at 8 a.m. It was only a 2-minute drive to Alondra's house, but seeing as I'm a morning person and I got to choose the timing, that's the time I chose. She hops in the car and we're on our way. After an easy half-hour drive, we end up in Eldorado Canyon. She tells me that she recognizes the canyon as she used to come here for a daycare during the summers at a swimming pool. Sure enough, as we continue going forward, driving up a bumpy dirt road, on our right becomes an antique-style swimming pool, with brown walls surrounding the sides next to the canyon wall, and a sketchy-looking guardrail to make sure that children don't fall into the creek that splits the canyon. 1905 had been a year of bringing the East to the West, with the opening of the Moffett Lakes Resort, nicknamed the Coney Island of the West. The resort loudly boasts the fact that they have the largest pool in the entire United States. Nestled in the canyon, the resort soon became a travel destination for many individuals on the west side of the Mississippi River, including Dwight and Mamie Eisenhower, who decided to go there for their honeymoon. Visitors arrived via horseback or train, coming in swarms and forcing the resort to open up 2 more pools on the property. When you arrive, you can see women standing on the outskirts of the pool as they're watching their children laugh and splash below them. Not only were guests able to experience the largest pool in the U.S., but also to be the audience of Ivy Baldwin's tightrope show, where he would perform his walk 582 feet above the canyon floor. His first trip across was on the 1-year anniversary of the resort opening, with his last being in 1948 at the age of 82. As we continue driving past the swimming pool, my car dips left, right, into all the rivets of the dirt road. I can feel my seatbelt against my chest as we fall into each of these divots. Finally, after crossing a short bridge over the creek, we see a ranger station where we will pay $10 to enter the park. It's a quick and easy interaction where we give up the $10, but in fact we get back entrance and a free map. We thank the ranger and then we begin to drive up the mountain, passing the initial parking lot. As we're driving up, the road decides to narrow, where it's kind of hard to believe that 2 cars would be allowed to pass at once. But alas, we finally make it up to the parking area next to our trailhead, Rattlesnake Gulch. Despite the name, what my best friend and I were truly expecting out of this hike was to see the Continental Divide, as the app had told us we would find. Supposedly, the trail we encountered was an old roadway that used to be driven on in the early 20th century. We begin making our way up this trail, walking about 1,000 feet before the first switchback. Shortly before the switchback, there's a real life-size brass statue of a rattlesnake. Looking over, of course I screamed and jumped, leading my best friend to do the same. She was the first to realize that the snake was in fact a statue and we really shouldn't be scared. The old Moffett Road is what this trail became a part of, and it was a slim dirt road that led up to the side of a mountain. As we continued climbing, we kept navigating, going through big rocks laid on the side and stepping over the smaller ones. We don't see many people, but the ones we do politely go to their proper edge of the trail, and we do the same, in order not to pass COVID. 30 minutes go by, and we begin to get worried about where the trail went in. Are we on the right one? Was the trail changed? Was all trails wrong? Did the road used to go to something? With all of these questions going through our minds, we hear a thunder and look up towards the left to the top of the ridge. A train chugging along, making its way into the Rockies nearly a half-mile above our heads and pushing forward as strong as it could. This was motivation enough to continue for at least a little bit longer. About 15 minutes later, the trail flattens out and we encounter a leftward bend. Here, we encounter the hotel. The doors first opened to the Craggs Hotel in 1908, located inside Eldorado Canyon, just 2 years after the opening of the Moffett Lakes Resort. Enter here for dancing, singing, and poker. After taking the steep and treacherous drive up Moffett Road, or hiking down from the Moffett Railroad, which would cost only $1 to come all the way from Denver. If you feel extra adventurous, take the funicular trolley up the side of the mountain in order to cut upward travel time into a quarter. Coming to this hotel is not for those nervous about heights, as it's perched on the side and top of a ridge in the Eldorado Canyon. For 4 years, this hotel hosted plenty of thrill seekers and gamblers. Unknown to those who attended this attraction, the hotel will burn down in 1912 and not be rebuilt. Looking at the ruins was a beautiful and tragic feeling. What lay beneath the ash that won't be seen again? What is being touched now that hasn't been touched since 1908 when the hotel opened, or in 1912 when it burned down? What histories weren't recorded? What histories were purposely kept from the public? Being able to see the remains of such an exciting area was great, to say the least. Those who climb the hike today are able to see the remains of the retaining walls, fireplaces, broken ceramic, nails, water fountain, and views from what it could have been like as an attraction to this day if a fire never happened in November 1912. It's easy to get lost in your imagination here. The trail continues upwards from the hotel for a mere fourth of a mile to an overlook. This shorter section of the hike is significantly easier, with barely any incline. Since this part of the hike feels like a completely different style, it's easy to assume that the trail continued only for the purpose of the enjoyment of those staying at the Crags Hotel, wanting to go on what they would call a Rocky Mountain hike. Alondra and I made it to the edge of the overlook, and we could see the Continental Divide. It's a magnificent feeling to know that where we stand today, visitors over 100 years ago would have also stood in awe of the mountains right next to us.